all eyes continue to be on Greece. Of course, over the weekend there was a referendum to which the Greek people voted a resounding no, saying they did not want the proposal that was on the table from creditors. Here to give us some perspective on what this is, what it means, and where it's going, we're joined by Geoff Wilson. He's Managing Director at TD Asset Management. Okay, let's start with the what happened first off. I mean, what happened that was important that people should pay attention to?
Well, I think this was, in my mind, it was a pause in the negotiation, and it was the Greek government going to the people, do you support this deal? Because we don't think you do, and we don't, and we want to make sure that we deliver a message to the rest of Europe that the Greek people are not behind this deal. And we heard that loud and clear. Very loud and clear.
So they're going to go back. Now you've got this, the Greek government somewhat changed. The finance minister now has left. You've got support of the Greek people, but what can they actually do with that? I mean, what actually happens from here?
So I think the reason the finance minister left is he was perceived as an impediment to negotiation. So I think that Prime Minister Tsipras wants to go back to Europe and say, okay, can we get a deal done? And my opinion is the answer is no, because Europe still has to take any deal that might be agreed, and they have to get it through their own parliaments. And I think the only way to do that is if there's some form of austerity. And Greece has basically said, we don't want any austerity. So to me, I don't think there's a deal to be had, but it doesn't preclude them grinding something out and finding some common ground.
Right, but it's going to be a grind, to say the least, because they've been at this for years.
Yeah, and I think if you listen to the, some of the European participants, they're saying, we're back to square one.
I know when you and I were speaking earlier, you had mentioned that, they're going to go back to the table and perhaps try and get a new deal. But in the meantime, there's the Greek economy and the Greek banking system specifically that has its own issues to deal with. What's the issue?
Well, there's a few issues. One, the ATM machines are running out of money, and people can't go into a branch and get money.
Yeah.
So those are the, from a very simple people on the ground perspective, it's causing pain. But once you get past that, you've got large companies, corporations that are trying to, import-export corporations, and they can't actually pay for things because they can't access their money.
Right.
So the economy is literally grinding to a halt here.
Until they can get this done. Now, in order to get the banks going again, to recapitalize the banking system, you need what?
Well, to recapitalize the banking system, you need to have solvent banks. And solvent banks means profitable banks and banks that have money to lend.
Right.
And
a currency.
And a currency in which to do so. And so how do you recapitalize? Well, you need somebody to come in and inject capital. And so either that's going to come from the ECB or Europe, or it's going to come from Greece, or it's going to come from private people who are willing to invest in the Greek banking system. But none of that seems realistic at this point, and the recapitalization is likely to fall to the Greek government. How do you want to recapitalize? And if you want some help, you're going to have to go to the ECB and say, how can you help me with this?
All arrows, as you have been saying, seems to be pointing towards more of a Greek exit than anything else. Can you take me through what the concern is for investors around a Greek exit? I mean, we hear the word contagion thrown around a lot, and I know I've spoken with your colleagues that mention a lot of Greek debt now is not being held by private banking. It's held by European institutions. I mean, what is the true contagion? What should or are investors worried about with Greece?
Well, what I'm worried about is that Europe is actually, from an economic perspective, is actually doing quite well. And so from here, the real risk is that gets hamstrung, and that instead of focusing on measures to increase growth in the rest of Europe, focus becomes very concentrated on dealing with Greece, and we get a slowdown, we get an erosion of confidence, and corporations stop making investment decisions, and you just get a global slowdown or a European slowdown that has implications for the rest of the global economy.
So really for you, this is more of a growth concern versus a technical issue with what's going on with Greece?
I'm very much concerned about global growth coming out of this.
Just and you know, when you, because I know, you know, mainstream media tends to be quite caught up in terms of the headlines, and we see a lot about Greece, not to diminish what people in Greece are going through, but from an investor perspective, what are your larger concerns, or what are you watching for on the growth story in terms of just the markets and the global economy in general? Well,
I think there's you know, there's all kinds of things going on with the U.S., with the Trans-Pacific Partnership and free trade, and whether or not that can jumpstart global or U.S. growth, and U.S. growth relating to Asia, and these are things that are pro-growth, and these are positive stories, and you know, we're focusing on those, but we're also focusing on things that aren't working out quite so well, and China obviously is a concern with their economy slowing, and some of the problems with their stock market, and obviously Greece. So these are the big issues of today.
Great talking to you, Geoff. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kim.
Geoff Wilson, Managing Director at TD Asset Management. I'm Kim Parley. Thanks so much for watching.